Hey, Salty. Getting ready to go here. Okay. Alrighty then. Hey, everybody. Happy Wine Wednesday. Hope you're having a fabulous Wednesday. I'm getting there. Got my favorite spyglass going on. One of the only Cabernets that I really like. Um, I've found that I'm more of a Merlot gal. But anyhow, I'm here to chat with you guys. So let's see who's joined us so far and what you guys want to chat about tonight. Alrighty. Hello, Salty. How are you tonight? You know what? My hair's a little crazy tonight. As I started to get ready to go live on time tonight, I might add, yes, I'm patting myself on the back big time. But as I got ready to start to go live tonight, they changed everything again. So I had to spend a few extra minutes making sure everything was still working. So if you do notice any audio problems or anything like that, please let me know. Let's see. Let's see if I have any updates. I'm trying to think if I have anything to up. We're on time. Yeah, right? I'm so proud. Okay. Anyhow, and wouldn't you know it, it's the one time that everybody's busy and nobody joined. Oh, it's okay though. It's all right. You all know I can sit up here and ramble. I do have to make tonight kind of quick just to let you guys know because I have to be at a store that closes by 10, something for the girls. So, anyhow, hello, Curtis Smith. How are you this evening? I should probably put a link up just in case anybody does want to join. So let's see. You guys know I always have trouble with this one. Let me try to do some announcements while. Here we go. Feel free to try to use the link that I'm posting. You can join, or you can keep commenting in the chat option. Hi, somebody just opened my door. Sorry. Hi. Okay, so anyways, you can just comment and talk in the chat, no problem. But if you want to join and show your tank or share some information live, feel free to try to use the link. We've discovered so far that it doesn't work 100% of the time on phones, but if you have a laptop or computer, or you can of course try on a phone. It requires Hangouts. I did write an article about it, but it's still not posted, so because the website's not up. But anyways, there's the link in case anybody does want to try to join. But welcome to anyone who's in the comments. Updates. Let's just see, shall we? All right. So I did speak with Dan. I thought for a moment that maybe he had won the lottery and he was off on a boat somewhere. That was my hope. Unfortunately, he found a payphone in the middle of the Pacific and managed to call me. Just kidding. But bottom line is he's doing well, just hardworking, that kind of no nonsense, dedicated type stuff. Seahorses are still doing great, and he'll join if he can, but he's just so busy. Y'all know. If anyone has purchased any of the dwarf erectus seahorses from Seahorse Source, please let me know. I want to know how they're doing, what they're about. I want to hear your opinion. So yeah, let me know if you've done that or if anybody's got anything going on that's new. Any new seahorse? Hey Ray, what up?
How are you doing?
I'm great. Did you notice I was on
I don't know
time?
what. I'm sorry.
I said, did you notice I was on time tonight?
Yeah, that's what caught me by surprise. I figure, well, I'm not going over there until about 10 after, quarter after, because I spent half an hour last week. I was trying for half an hour, and as soon as I got off, apparently you
I
got
got
on. That's
on.
what I found out later on, anyway.
Well, thanks to
But
you, Ray. I'm dedicated. I know I've said it before, but I'm really making an effort here because I don't want to let anybody down. But anyways, I'm just glad to see you. How are you?
well, same as always.
Okay, I was just doing.
Haven't changed a lot.
I was just doing updates. I happened to talk to Dan. He's still kicking, doing great. Just busy, but hopefully he'll pop in tonight. We'll see. I have not talked to Lucy because her internet sucks so badly right now. Hopefully she gets it worked out, but I just have to live for her posts. But anyways, Ray, so if nothing's going on new with you, have you noticed any interesting posts lately? Anything interesting that's been discussed online anywhere?
Oh boy. Uh, well, see, what might be interesting to me might not be to other people.
Hey, we can
Like
always
some
try.
people,
I'm
I
sorry.
was named in a post about some lab testing for something. I can't remember what it's all about now, but like people think that's interesting, but
Heck
for
yeah.
me, I don't find any interest in it.
Now that's interesting. Why don't you find scientific research and such like that interesting? Oh, I remember the post. I know what you're talking about. Why don't you find that
Well,
interesting?
to me, they're going to be taking advantage of people. You're going to be paying for the service, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not a needed service. Now, if it's something you want to pay for just out of curiosity, that's fine. But I'm not that type of person.
Sure. I do. I remember what the post was
Things get
now.
by, like doing water changes works out fine for me.
Right. Just for anybody watching, I remember what the post was now. I believe it was in either Seahorse Sources group or the Salty Seahorse group, or maybe even on Seahorse Whisper. I'm not sure. But anyhow, I'll try to link it when we're done. But the post was regarding testing type situation, or is it a kit? I guess. Anyways, it was about testing water parameters, and Lucy found a service that was so extensive that they tell you literally the bacteria and such is the impression I got from the post, that they tell you bacteria counts. They can tell you, in addition to any of your water parameters. So I found that really interesting just because of the fact that I've had issues with seahorses. Um, and so I'd be very curious, like when there is a problem, to know which bacteria or which, whatever was predominant in the tank when it was occurring. I don't know how accurate the testing is. It's probably, the first of many that will come. But
I'd be very concerned about that.
do you think that it's probably not very accurate? Is
Uh,
that,
I'd be very concerned about it. Well,
yeah.
just to pick, for example, something that I came across recently, it's a very popular thing, getting your DNA tested.
Okay.
And they're going to tell you where you're from and all your history and all that. In Canada here, we have uh, a CBC television show called Marketplace. Marketplace did some testing on this. They set up some employees and put into the different companies that were doing this kind of thing to find out what results were.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first off, not all companies come up with the same results.
Right.
That's number one. Who's right, if any of them are right? The next thing after that was two of the people that made submissions were identical twins. The results came back different when they should have been the same.
Oh, well, that's not good.
Now, this, this is something that the population as a whole, so many people are spending big bucks on doing this. And in my opinion, they're getting hosed. So I'm very leery when somebody comes up here and tells me all this stuff. When I know from many years ago working in a lab, I know the cost of equipment to do testing. And if they're going to get to the level of reporting on all this so-called accuracy and all this fact that they're going to have in here, it's astronomical cost.
Right.
And so I'm leery unless I could sit there, watch them doing it, and know the equipment that they're using. Um, yeah, like I just can't see it.
No,
Um,
I'm hearing you.
it may be legit, but still, even if it was legit, I just don't see the need. As I say again, it gets back to that point. If you want to spend the money just because you're interested in knowing something like that, that's great. If you think it's going to help your seahorses, I don't see a lot of need for it. You can spend a lot of money and maybe still they'll come up and they're going to tell you all sorts of things here. You have to decide if one of those things is causing your problem. They're
Sure.
not going to tell you that that problem is causing this seahorse to have internal organ failure.
You're not wrong, and I'll be completely honest. I didn't, but just the picture on the post. I should have contacted Lucy before we started talking about it because I'm not exactly positive about the extent. I don't even know the name of the company or anything, guys. So I'm sorry. I'll look for the post as soon as we're done. I was trying to sneak and look for it right now, but I was not able to find it. But I will find it. And anyways, Ray, would your mind be changed if you were having a problem? Would you be interested in knowing like all of the organisms in the tank to try to determine, oh, okay, there's a whole bunch of these and I happen to know that these are bad, so that's probably my problem in a way that would help you determine like whether to medicate if nothing was wrong or maybe what to use if there was something wrong, or would you still say no? Just
So I guess before I was give a positive answer on that, I'd have to see some experienced
sure.
facts coming out from people who've been using it for a period of time that would convince me that it was a legit thing. Um, if I made a submission, if I'm having problems and I submit the water to them and they do the testing and they give me back all this information, I'm not qualified to determine if any one of the results that they give me is actually causing my problem. And they aren't going to tell me because they're going to have legal things on their hand if they get wrong. So all they're going to do is report. If it's legit, they can report what's in there, maybe to levels of it and so on. But they're not going to tell you that X microbe is causing this problem in your seahorse and making it die and so on or whatever. Not even a simple thing like this is probably causing your problem.
Right.
Um, they would leave themselves open for so much legal trouble. It's not even funny if they did that.
Oh, I know. I'm sure you're right. I'm sure they have protected yourself. And interestingly, Felicia, I know you probably remember Felicia from Seahorse.org. Felicia McCulley, she is very into the DNA testing for humans. So I would love, I'm going to have to message her on the
Well,
side to get her take on this.
I'd
Um,
like to have a talk with her. I'd like her to watch that show.
yeah,
Maybe, well, she's in the States, but she still should be able um, to get online to CBC CBC Canada. It's a TV radio network in Canada. And if you go to Marketplace, they have previous shows that are on there, and you can click on them and watch them.
Gotcha.
So if she's that much into it, and if she believes it, then it would be an eye opener for her.
It always is. I mean, we've talked about this so many times too with, with other people and such. It's hard to say where the line is because when you come up with these new tests or learn that you can maybe gain more information from scientific advances and research, it's really great at first and everybody's like, "Oh, I want to know everything about what's going on." And then when there's fallback and you realize that maybe they're not so accurate or whatever, I do totally see your point. So I'm gonna hit Lucy up as soon as we're done because I want to know, if she thinks what she thinks, if it was accurate or what. Lucy, if you happen to
Mhm.
jump in here tonight, comment away if you can, because yeah. Did your dinger go off, Ray? Oh, you looking
No,
something up?
my dog is wanting attention.
Oh, well, hey, give the
I think he
dog
wants
attention.
outside, but every time I get up to take him outside, then he'll stop because it's raining out and he can't stand the wet.
Gotcha. I don't blame him. But no, I really appreciate that you come in here and you
But it
give.
hasn't stopped raining, so
Oh, here either. Actually, it's been raining nonstop, and I had just treated my girls. My girls got really good grades, and so I bought them a desk and some other wood features.
whoops,
It's okay. And some other wood
it was going in
features.
and out there.
Okay, well, if I
Let's see if we
lose
got
you,
a
I'm
couple
sorry.
more in.
Oh, somebody else jumped in? Okay. Oh, I believe this is Curtis. Curtis, I'll hurry up and nope, it's Kevin. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Did you jump in just for fun or?
Yeah, normally I can't attend these talks you have, but it's the fifth Wednesday of the month, so I don't have a meeting.
Hey, yay. Actually, I'm so glad that you did join. Would love to hear anything that's going on your end, of course, as always. But I'm really curious, and actually, really fast. I want to say, Curtis, I did see your comment. I'm gonna find a way as soon as we're done chatting to get you in here to see your Seahorse issue. No problem. But Kevin, I'm curious what you think about all the new companies and products and et cetera, coming out that do these tests and can tell you the bacteria counts. Do you think that they're useful for hobbyists or is it just too off the mark?
So I came in right as you were asking someone named Lucy to give her opinion, but I missed the topic, sorry.
Sure, no problem. Okay, so we were just, doing a Wine Wednesday chat as per
Just so
usual.
you know, it's aqua biomix.
First, what, Ray?
It's aqua biomix.
Okay, thank you, because
Aqua biomix.
thank you because we weren't sure of the name. But basically,
It's on
Lucy,
Seahorse Sources Group.
Seahorse Sources Group. Lucy had posted, just that she had seen it and gotten some tests done and it was literally saying like bacteria and such of the counts of each in her aquarium. And Ray had made the comment that he doesn't think that that's a good thing because people over worry, chase numbers, etc., and it might not even be accurate. So I just wondered if you had any insight or thoughts into how accurate these types of tests are, even if they're just testing the, you know, parameters, but now we're getting bacteria. Just wondered your thoughts overall.
Yeah, so this is relative abundance of families of bacteria or fungus or whatever in the tank or in the water. So about 7, 8 years ago, I want to say I was aware of some research at the public aquarium level, which was led in part or mostly by the Shed Aquarium in Chicago. And so for, I believe, decades and decades, the Shed Aquarium does as many of the hobbyists do, and we make RODI water and we have our salt premix and we put them together and we cycle our tank. And if we live like you do in the middle of the country, it's difficult, and we don't think about this, but we say, oh, the tank is cycled, and let's take these fish that were potentially just 3 weeks ago on the other side of the planet and put them into our tank. Now they have their local or regional relative abundance of bacteria, not only in their gut, but on their surface, just like you and I do. When we travel around the world, sometimes we might have indigestion or we might get sick because we're exposed to new things. Well, for decades and decades, the shed aquarium was, just doing water changes and never bringing in an actual batch of salt water from the ocean. As many of the public aquariums around the coast have access to, they can either suck in their own ocean water or truck in their own ocean water. And so one of the veterinarians, I believe he's the head veterinarian, and someone who I would love to have at MACNA speaking, unfortunately didn't work out these past 2 years. But he's a vet, and he made the realization that some of their marine mammals and some of their larger elasmobranchs, those are sharks and rays, and also some of their fish, were just having these reoccurring underlying problems of not growing as fast as they thought they would be, and they'd just be sick occasionally, and they would see these opportunistic bacterial infections, especially in the blowholes of some of their dolphins that they have at the Shed Aquarium. And so they kind of took a larger picture. They would say, this bacteria would never be able to colonize successfully and to make a dolphin ill in the wild. So why is it happening in our tank?
Hmm.
And what they did is they took bacterial and water samples from their biological filters. And they did something similar. I think I saw this a couple of days ago. They developed those pie charts that basically have different colors, and they tell you the proportion of families or even hierarchically, like orders of bacteria
Sure.
in relative abundance to other ones. And they can show you basically, here's what ocean water should be in Florida, or here's ocean water should be in California, and here's your tank. Well, basically, it was something that was like less than 1/10% of something that was supposed to be in the wild, in the gut of an animal, or in the sand, was something like 60 or 70% of all of the bacteria, not only in the filters of the Shed Aquarium, but in the gut linings and the bodies of all of their animals. So they said, well, this is horrible. How can we get back to a natural? Not that natural is particularly better. That's a fallacy. I don't want to say that natural
Right.
is good in this case, but how can we get back to something that these animals were co-evolving with in the wild historically, and something that their immune systems can better deal with? And so what they did, I think they went as far as to completely shut down large tanks, send their animals off to other facilities while
Wow.
they dried out all their biological filtration and brought in brand new seawater from, well, I forget what coast. They're in Chicago, so they might have gone as far as like New York or something. Bring in salt water and reseed their biological filters to something that is more along the lines of what the animals would have been used to if they were wild collected, or if they were captive bred. Something that they're traditionally, that lineage would have been seeing in the wild. And so, yeah, sure enough, I think the whole point of trying to bring that speaker in, or this kind of test, is to say, we don't want these monocultures of bacteria to take over our gut lining. So when we have, as humans, eat, but when we take antibacterial drugs, what
Sure.
we're doing, antibiotics, is we're not only killing the bad bacteria, but the good bacteria. And so
Mm.
you see commercial companies trying to say they have probiotics, and they have trillions of cultures of live bacteria in these items, and that is to potentially seed your gut lining with these beneficial bacteria. Like you and I, given our assumed historical ancestry, can process dairy more reasonably than someone who may not be from ancestrally be from Northern Europe. And so, just like we could see some people can take a lactase pill to help them digest that, we can seed our gut lining with bacteria that can assist us in what we
Right.
eat. Um, but yeah, ultimately, we want to make sure that the fish aren't getting sick or aren't immunocompromised because they're not as healthy as they could be. Not that the monoculture or the inappropriate ratio of bacteria would be the cause of the sickness. They would just be an underlying stressor that would aid into opportunistic pathogens to
Sure.
come and invade the animal and make them sick.
Makes sense. So it's not really trying to pinpoint a problem. It's more to determine if you're close to their natural environment. I think I kind of get the overall thing. I know there's more to it than that, but interesting that it does matter where we come from. Apparently, all the all the separation. Anyhow, that is fascinating. And so, do you know? Do you happen to know? Because this really is fascinating. Do you happen to know if it has, if they have been able to keep it up? Meaning they reseeded, but is this a case of, like this is just going to happen because we're in an aquarium, or any thoughts or?
Yes, because I mean, in any closed system, as you know, if you're a vet, you're trying to well, you can't really with an aquatic animal, you can't really give an injection. You can, but that requires to catch an animal. So
Sure.
oftentimes, what you do from a veterinary point of view is you're diagnosing, what might be wrong. You suspect something's wrong with the animal or in a tank, then you're dosing the water with some sort of chemical or some sort of antifungal agent, and that inadvertently will not only help the fish uh, be more healthy, but it could change the biological filtration systems as well. So I think they're actively monitoring all of their systems because they have
Awesome.
multiple closed systems at any public aquarium. But that research and that method has spread, I think, to other association of zoos and aquariums, AZA accredited facilities, so that they can
Wow.
maintain a certain minimum standard of animal care and animal health. But oftentimes, like I mentioned, like if you have, let's say, something along the coast of California that's a
Sure.
more temperate region, and you have those bacteria loads and that are familiar to the fish from around that area. But if you bring in a tropical tank and a tropical system, there's always kind of a discussion, I would hope, that would say, are we going to take the California water and heat it up and introduce that to this, say, tank, or are we going to make and mix our own salt water? So, yeah, I think everyone should be testing for that at a public aquarium level. And now,
Sure.
if we are a seahorse breeder, or if we are a seahorse, yeah, if you're like an essential part of a country or a continent and you don't have access to salt water, um, potentially it's something you want to consider just to make sure that your animals are not immunocompromised and have the ability to successfully fend off every potential disease or pathogen. Not that it would be immune to everything, but you don't want to sell immunocompromised animals, especially if you're distributing them around the world or around the United States.
I saw two people. I saw Dan join. I will absolutely give you a chance. I got two final quick questions. First off, did we get the vet to maybe come to this year's MACNA? Or are you working on it? Because that sounds fascinating.
I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm working on
Okay,
it. Yeah,
good.
yeah. I was just thinking about some more speakers. We'll do our first announcement of 8 or 10 or so here shortly.
Woohoo! And just a quickie, guys, don't forget, I'll start doing some ads and stuff very soon because we're going to get a jump start. We already have gotten a jump start on women in reefing and seahorse and pipefish at MACNA. We will definitely be there and awesome this year. I'm busy. Sorry, child. Anyhow, and now I've forgotten my last. Oh, so um, actually, I did remember my last question. So this is kind of really a push or a notch in the belt of natural saltwater people that think that that's the way to go. I understand you're talking at a public aquarium level, and I understand, it's just that we have spent so much time as seahorse keepers. I won't speak for breeders, but keepers, avoiding natural saltwater or sterilizing the crap out of it, which has to kill the good too, probably. That it's kind of funny that we're coming back around to hear maybe this natural salt water is needed. Do you agree with that statement somewhat, or and is it? And you said this is public aquarium level, but do you think hobbyists should be looking too?
Well, ultimately, if we want to, I'm in a blanket statement, no.
Okay, I
Uh,
know that was a tough one. Go ahead.
yeah, in a blanket statement, no, because if you're a breeder, ultimately you have other concerns that are potentially more pressing, such as biosecurity. So you don't want to introduce foreign disease from a local body of water into your uh, breeding facility.
Right.
And so I would love to see a university or some sort of scholastic institute testing these biological, these bacteria in a bottle cultures to see what their distribution of bacteria are in there. And see, I would imagine they don't have any claims as to the distribution of different families of bacteria, ultimately those products are made for cycling your tank, from moving that ammonia to
Sure.
nitrate, and then through water changes we're moving the nitrate. Now there could be a market place, or a space in our industry for a product that could provide claims and hopefully prove the claims of our bacteria culture is similar to that of the Red Sea or this part of this ocean, so that you can, potentially, I don't know. It's tough. We're not there yet. I don't
Right.
think we can adequately culture that, but to bring in unfiltered seawater into a facility, public aquariums don't do that. They're at least coarse filtering it, and then they're probably filtering it down to a couple of
Sure.
microns. We're not removing viruses from this water. I'll be touring a facility here in a couple of days that filters down to a tenth of a micron, um, just because they're doing scientific work. But yeah, I'm ultimately okay with breeding facilities from a biosecurity point of view, understanding that they have to be bringing in purified or UV'd, sterilized
Sure.
natural seawater, or just mixing your own. And
Sure.
oftentimes, especially in the United States, we don't have access to clean natural seawater like some other
Right.
countries do in a coastal area, right?
There's a huge difference, right? I mean, even like Australians, they don't understand what I'm saying when I'm like, no natural salt water, because it's just different. But you mentioned that I know Dan's chomping at the bit to say something probably, but you mentioned the bottled bacteria. I would be absolutely fascinated. That's a very good point. I would be fascinated to know like how long they might I'd like to see what happens to the bacteria in the bottle. That would be fascinating to me. But anyhow, Dan, thank you for joining. Welcome. How are you?
Good evening. Sorry I'm coming in late.
That's good.
Who's our guest and what's the topic?
We are actually open chatting. We just had a great night so far. We have Ray joined us, and we started off discussing the post of Lucy's in Seahorse Sources group that showed the testing she did on the bacteria counts in her aquarium. Kevin joined in because Ray's opinion, just to give you a quick update, was that it's not going to be accurate enough, and he just doesn't see a place for it. Period. It was more than that. Sorry, Ray. I'm not
No, I
trying
didn't say it
to.
was going to be accurate enough. I said it may not be. I have no way to know.
Right. I'm
It's
sorry.
like when Kevin was talking here now, when say the shed gets involved in doing water testing, uh, it's going to be pretty big money, but they'll be doing it with a company that's recognized and known to be accurate. When the hobbyist gets into it, it's doubtful that it's going to be the same company doing the work. And as such, is that company going to be as reliable as the other one? So because I don't know, I don't
Sure.
trust it. And I gave that example of the DNA testing, which is
Humans. Right.
they're making billions of dollars for these companies off of this DNA testing, and it's not accurate.
Right. And then Kevin jumped in and gave us the really what's happened in the public aquariums. Thank you so much. And told us we might have a vet speaking about this actual topic at this year's MACNA. So very exciting. And then you jumped in, and now I see Salty. So also, Dan, just to let you know, we do have a Curtis in the comments that has a Seahorse issue that wants to touch base before we stop. But I thought maybe you had a
Okay.
comment for it. If not, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I thought you jumped in to say something.
Well, no.
Okay.
Well, I came in late, obviously.
Sure.
One thing that we should keep in mind is that we're probably not too far away from where we can send a water sample in and have them do a test on the sample with DNA capabilities and tell us exactly what we have in our tanks in terms of bacteria, protozoans, etc. The technology is there. The problem is bringing it to market and making it widely available and at a reasonable cost.
Right.
Um, but I do know the technology is there, and I've talked to people who have are familiar with it and have tested it, and it
Wow.
would be real cool if we could do that. And then as the database builds and we start learning what's normal, what's not in the average home aquarium, we can get a better idea. The problem is that when you look at it from a hobbyist point of view, a breeder point of view, to a public aquarium point of view,
Right.
there's a huge difference when you're talking a 25, 30 gallon tank, a 55 gallon tank versus, a whole bunch of tanks on a system or a very large, aquarium tank, such as a public aquarium. Um, the comment on the natural seawater, I've used it for the last 10 years, but as pointed out, I sterilize it before I use it. And the reason for that is that I'm always fearful of bringing things in. I can't get out far enough to get pure water. So
Right.
there's times where bacterial counts, in local waters go up. And the other problem is I also use the water for food, for cultures of,
Mm,
live feed. So I got to make sure that it's sterile before I use it for that.
sure. Yeah, it
Um,
makes sense. Go ahead.
So, I've always sterilized my water. Anybody that I know that does any type of food or algae cultures always sterilizes their water. But if you look at the majority of the aquaculture facilities, they don't. They just bring the water in, they filter it through sand, or it's a well driven saltwater system, and they just use the water. And sometimes they too have problems because
Sure.
they're drawing it out of estuaries instead of out of the ocean, and the the water quality varies greatly.
Well, not just that, but as Kevin was kind of saying in as he talked about what they did in the study or in the public aquarium, is that what they realized is that their counts were just so high, and of course that probably has to do with an enclosed system or whatever. So it depends on what kind of system. There's so many factors. I do completely understand, but Ray's point was a valid one. To me at least, because the validity. How do we know how valid these tests are? Just by people continuing to test it? Is that the main way to find out? Or, I mean, how do you know?
I'll let Kevin answer that one.
Oh, Kevin, you're on the spot.
Well, if you were to go with a lab, first, if they offer the testing, I would hope they would have some sort of accreditation facility or accreditation, you know, certificate that you could ask them about before you approach them. Now, what we see too in our industry, and as ICP continues to grow across the world in the United States, is that you can send off your water quality to several different facilities and test them against each other. Now, every single test that type of provider will have has its own standards and its own error associated with it. And same thing with culturing these different bacteria. They're all going to grow on different medium at different temperatures and different times with different amounts of oxygen. And so, ultimately, you might have a pie chart. And the reason they're providing you potentially with a pie chart or not like a listing down to the first or second or third decimal spot is they may have all associated different errors. And they might give you an overall error rating. That's something that you need to be wary of when you get those results. You might have, a huge chunk of that pie chart might be one order or one family of bacteria, but you might have all these little slivers, and actually those
Right.
little slivers might be so small that they might be smaller than the error rate, and so they are there potentially, but they don't know to what extent. Ultimately, from a point of view, you're looking at abundance, a relative abundance of that distribution of species. If you have something that should be, less than 0.1%, I'm saying should be, but that is present in the wild, and all of a sudden it makes up 70% of the bacterial
Right.
load in a tank. That obviously is concerning, but whether that's 70 or 55, as we've heard from people for decades now, and we hear reiterated at every show, you shouldn't be chasing numbers. Oh my God, it's 57%, and I need to be at 62%. Well,
Right.
we're getting to the point now where we can be so concerned with such minute details about our tanks, and we can have live testing of so many parameters now pushed to our cell phones that ultimately you just enjoy enjoy the hobby.
Right, it's
And
gotten right. I do see your point completely. There's definitely a place for these tests, and absolutely, but maybe, yeah, maybe it's a little much. Lucy's kind of a scientific freak herself, so it's a little different. But what were you gonna say, Dan?
I would expect that in aquaculture facilities, especially with high density populations and high feed rates, um, and more so with seahorses, and even with the hobbyist breeder, and even the plain, seahorse tanks that hobbyists have. With the high organic loading content that we have, I would expect the bacterial counts to get out of hand at times and to be vastly different than, say, a just plain display tank, or a big public aquarium tank. um, the organic loading in these type of systems is very, very high. So whether it be bacteria or protozoans, I'd expect at times for those counts to be very high.
Sure. So it might be even bad to know because it would be chasing, right?
Right. Well, with recirculating aquaculture, it's interesting because some of the studies that I've read, flow through systems don't have the same type of bacterial counts as recirculating systems,
Hmm.
unless you've really got the proper filtration and sterilization through the recirculation that you get with flow through. And, you know, it can quickly get out of hand if it's not kept under control.
Right. Scary, and then yet, right. I hear you. I see Kevin looking something up. It might be a phone book. It might be some science. Who knows?
You think it's a phone book? This is some light winter reading. If you guys are interested, about 950 pages about the the engineering and the math required to run a high scale and a high production recirculating aquaculture system. That's published out of the Cornell and the USDA, and they offer like a 6-week course in it as well. But yeah, no, it's like ultimately, as Dan was saying, these closed systems and even open systems have such bioload that the total ammonium nitrate and the bacterial load is such a concern that they really have to know what they're feeding and what they have. And the production of the food is really like biologically controlled as well. And if you're a scientist, this is something that we're thinking about all the time. But as a hobbyist, ultimately, like this is geekdom for a lot of hobbyists, like to look up the exact equation that you need to figure out the amount of, the diameter of bubbles in a protein skimmer, or how much surface area in square miles you need for a tank of salmon that are, as long as your arm, and that are, 5 kilos per liter of water. It's crazy. This is that book, but yeah, I can. I don't have a digital copy of this, but I can show you guys where to get this book if you're interested. It might be
Yes,
more of a
please.
textbook.
I mean, still post the link. I mean, that's the type of book that I would absolutely love to have on my shelf, but I'm not promising I can understand any of it. Still, I might be calling Kevin and calling
What
Dan, but go
what
ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Well, I've got several engineering books that cover some of that stuff, but what makes seahorses so unique in breeding is that most people don't realize how different they are than regular fish when you're looking at, aquaculture of different species. Seahorses, when they snick, their mechanics of how they eat, roughly 8% of what goes in their mouth comes out through their gills through the maceration process. And because they have such a rudimentary digestive system, what goes in comes out relatively quickly. So roughly 23% of what they eat actually that gets into the gut does not get digested. So when you do the math, roughly 1/3 of the food that they actually eat does not get digested, ends up back into the water. And then because of their crappy process, they eat more than regular fish. It's very high content in protein. So the organic levels in a seahorse tank are often much higher than, say, if I was doing, I've seen clownfish tanks with hundreds and hundreds of clowns in a small tank. You could not get away with that with a seahorse tank because of the organic loading. And you can't run the filtration fast enough and high enough to filter out all that stuff because they don't swim like regular fish. You can't have such a high flow rate. So it presents a very unique challenge compared to other fish, but it's still doable once you get it figured out. You take myself, Alyssa, and several other breeders. We've been able to do it, but it's much more labor intensive because of that than, say, doing a bunch of clownfish.
Sure. Yes. Truth. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. Curtis, I just want to say, if you have tried to get into the Hangout and we're not able to, please let me know. I just want to make sure that the person with the actual Seahorse issue does get helped. If not, please either message myself or whomever personally, or you can always post your either question or picture or whatever on Seahorse Sources group or Seahorse Whisperer Society, and we'd be happy to help or just join in. I'm not really sure how. Anybody with me right now have any idea how he could post a picture or
I
video
don't know,
without
but
coming in?
he says he sent me a video, but Salty Reef got in on the iPhone and I got in this time, but no problem at all. So I would suspect that if he has a good link, he should be able to join.
Okay, so I can post the link again if you'd like, or Curtis, just click on that link. You do have to download Hangouts, but you can always delete it right afterwards if you don't want to keep it, and then jump right in. You just have to close it and go through the link again and come in. And we'd love to help you. We want to help you, but yeah, yeah. And there was another.
Curtis, where?
Go ahead, Dan.
Hold on, Curtis. Where did you send the video?
Okay, and while we're waiting on him to respond, Izzy, apologies, wanted to know first, or no, I'm sorry, Salty Reef wants to know, where is MACNA at this year, Kevin, if you're able to tell us right now, which I already know, but. Did you hear me, Kevin? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I had to find my mute button. Yeah,
Okay.
MACNA 2020 is in Phoenix, Arizona from August 28th to the 30th. It's both at the Phoenix Convention Center downtown, and then our hotel's across the street at the Sheraton Grand Phoenix, which has just changed its name. So tickets right now, we have the full conference tickets on sale, I believe, for $50 off. And the weekend and daily tickets will go on sale probably just before Valentine's Day. But we'll have some November deals coming out here soon for Thanksgiving, and then some Christmas deals as well. And we'll be announcing some speakers here shortly, as well as getting confirmation from this year's keynote. But the theme is a reef oasis in the desert, and we're going to be bringing in a variety of speakers. We're going to kind of go from a general topic in the even years to a more a specific topic in the odd years, like we had in 2019, where we were celebrating aquaculture. And so hopefully we can have, I think, 23 to 24, 25 speakers again.
Wow.
And that speaker room will be right next to the show floor this year. As we move around, we try to find places that are not only affordable for everyone to attend, but also can fit a show of our size. And so it's always good to be at a convention center now, because we've grown to the point where we need that much space under one roof. But you can go to macna.org and you can find out information about ticket types, the hotels, and where to fly into, as well as things to do before or after MACNA, because MACNA is 3 days, but so many people stay a fourth, a fifth, or a sixth day, not only hang out with their friends, but to see the local area and to make it a vacation as well, because we have such competitive hotel rates that you wouldn't be able to get potentially on your own at such a nice facility, that it's always good to see everyone before and after we go and do things around the area. So I like to hang out with the people. I'll show up I show up for work, a week ahead of time, but I like to stay around afterwards too, to hang out with anyone who's there and to see that region or that state or that area. So this year I tried to go to Disney World, but it was raining.
Right. Right. That darn hurricane. Actually, I can tell. Not a hurricane. It did not hit. You're right. It was really messed up. But anyhow, I just wanted to let anybody else who is watching let you know that these MACNA events are really amazing. I saw someone saying they were going to Reefapalooza too. I honestly haven't been to one, so I can't comment, but I know that MACNA is one I never miss unless there's literally an almost hurricane. But that being said, we hold, side group events too. And if you subscribe to MACNA on via email, on Facebook, on any of these outlets, then you see all the good deals on tickets, wink wink. And I'm telling you, try to plan extra time, because there's never enough time, I promise. You just never want to leave, and you miss so many things you want to do because you don't, plan plan your trip for sure. And I'll be, mentioning some more things that, we plan to do for Seahorse folks too. So Seahorse folks come and can't wait to hear the keynote speaker for sure. Was there anything else you wanted to say about
Uh,
that before I interrupt? Go ahead, Dan.
what's the dates for next year's MACNA? Do we know?
Yep, MACNA is August 28th to the 30th, and that's the weekend before the holiday
Yep.
weekend.
Are you going to
Have
ask her your, Are you going to
have they
ask your
considered?
question? I knew it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
You
Have they
should.
considered moving it to a different time frame that's not in the peak of hurricane season?
Well, hurricane season just happens to be during MACNA season.
Right,
So
but
if,
the peak of it is the last couple
I love that.
weeks of August to the first couple weeks of September.
for,
And the reason I say that is the first year I was going to attend was 2004, and I bought the ticket. That was in Boston that year, and I bought the tickets. I paid for the hotel and the flight, and then I ended up not going because we got hit with 2 hurricanes within 3 weeks, and twice wanting to attend MACNA, we've been hit with hurricanes during MACNA, or right around the time of MACNA. And every year I'm so gun shy, I can't buy the tickets ahead of time that I wait till the last minute. And, by that time, most of the rooms are booked up and everything else, and the cost goes up exponentially for me. Um, my situation is a little bit different than the average because I had a breeding facility and I had a tremendous amount of money to lose if everything crashed while I was gone.
oh,
A
you're
very,
in Florida.
yes.
Yeah, Florida
I was
people.
like, I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Since I moved back to Florida, I grew up in Florida, and and we never had a hurricane. We may have had a tropical storm that I don't remember, but we never had a hurricane. But since I've been back, we've been nailed 4 or 5 times, and that's not counting the tropical storms. So, from a breeder standpoint, even a tropical storm that can knock out power presents huge problems for me to leave, to take care of the fish.
Mm. Yeah, I see. I'm always appreciative when anyone, especially the people who are members or very active in the MBI, come to MACNA, because I know that kind of potential loss and that they can face, and then finding someone to take over your facility or run your facility while you're away too is always a concern. So MACNA tickets are fully transferable up until 28 days before the show starts, and as well as I think this is true for every year since at least 2011, and in the foreseeable future, the hotels, we don't require a deposit, and that first night is in charge, I think, in 2 weeks before the show. And so you can buy now and
Right.
book your hotels now, and then sell your ticket up until 28 days before the show, and then cancel your hotel reservation. So
Right.
it's always a
Well,
concern, especially in Florida now, is with climate change and whatnot. So
well, for me, I don't make the decision until 2 weeks beforehand. Um, you know, 2 weeks when I'm looking at somewhere towards the end of June, I'm watching the tropics every day. I'm paying very close attention, but um, 2 weeks is about as close as I can get before I would buy a ticket or worry about whether or not I'm going to make it or not.
Well,
And even then, you can still have stuff spring up real quick. We've had storms that have sprung up in less than a week, but for the most part, at 2 weeks, you pretty much know whether or not something's coming or whether you got to pay attention or not.
Well, I just wanted to pipe up and say I totally get the fact that MACNA's been at the same time of year for forever. So it'd be really, I get both sides, but maybe it's an idea to have a pop sale 2 weeks prior for anybody in these areas or something, That's what I'm thinking. But anyhow, Dan, can you give me a real quick update on what's going on with Curtis? Is he getting through to you and such?
Yeah, Curtis, I got the picture, and looking at it, what I'm seeing is a round area, but what I can't tell from the one picture, um, is whether or not that's a raised area, whether it's a bubble, or if it's just a circular area that's discolored.
I so wish you
And
could
I got to wait for
join,
him.
Curtis. Sorry, Dan. I wish you could join because you could like literally hold the phone up and show us the seahorse, and we'd be able to look a little closer and ask you to move it. But yes, thank you so much, Dan, for helping him as we go, and hopefully we can either get it worked out or Curtis, you can join or whatever. Izzy wanted to know. I want to make sure we get the questions answered, guys. But if I miss anything, please feel free to shut me up and interrupt. But Izzy wanted to know how everyone sterilizes water. We already covered that, didn't we? Kinda. Dan, you did. Is there any preferred method?
Well, I I think there's different methods, and if you talk to different aquaculture facilities, you'll have different ideas of how they do it.
Right.
Um, Myself, what I do is from where I collect the water, I filter it down to 1 micron. I then bleach it, and it's bleached with chlorine for 4 hours contact time, and then I pump it into my tower, which then recirculates with UV and charcoal, and it it stays in that tower until I cut it with RO water and then pump it into my tower that I use. Um, you know, one of the facilities that produces algae locally, um, they they have it hauled in from a subcontractor, and they put it through charcoal and ozone. Um, I've heard other people that use just UV. I've heard, various people that use ozone and UV and charcoal. Um, there's a variety of ways of doing it.
Absolutely. And just a reminder to anybody who does watch this, we talk a lot about different areas of the industry, like a breeder might do things differently than a hobbyist. A public aquarium obviously is going to do things majorly different, and that's who we kind of look to as those breeders in public aquariums. But as a hobbyist, I'm already using basically sterilized water by making my own and putting in it what I want, and the salt and such. And I just do UV personally, so I just thought I'd throw that out. But I do have scrubber, skimmer, all that good stuff too. But as far as sterilization, it's just depends on if you're using natural salt water. And I wanted to say also, Curtis, I'm just curious really quickly. Do you have any? Oh, guys, I'm going to say this wrong. Asternia, is that how you pronounce it? The little starfish? Does anybody want to correct me on that pronunciation? Guess not. Okay, well, the little white starfish, if you have any of those, let me know if you've seen any, because I've just seen a lot of people that have come around to say that, oh, my seahorse has a spot, and it ends up being due to starfish that latch on to eat the algae on the seahorse and, you know, uh, damage a little skin there. So, no is the answer. All right, well, then I'm going to let Dan continue with you offline. Feel free to contact me also, but he's going to probably be better at answering it. So, all right, guys. What else? Have I
If I
missed? Go
may,
ahead.
if
Yes. I'm sorry.
um, I'm going to have to talk to Curtis directly because
Sure.
I just don't have enough history or enough information to really do anything as far as, anything I would say right now with what he's got going on would be strictly a silly wild guess. And
Sure.
I need a lot more information before I can even begin to isolate it down as to what's really going on.
Well, I did see Curtis's comment that is his plan. So good plan, Curtis. You made a good choice there. Definitely give Dan a call, and he'll help you out, especially now that he knows the call's coming. Very good. Just let us know, if what you figure out, whenever you figure it out. Was there anything else I missed, you guys? Anything else anybody wants to discuss? Topics? No. All right.
I could
Okay, go
I'll
ahead.
mention briefly that if anyone missed MACNA, or you
Yes.
want to watch the talks, one of our sponsors is Bulk Reef Supply, and on their YouTube
Yes.
channel you can look at playlists from MACNA speakers, not only from 2019 but 2018, 2017, 2016, and 2014. Additionally, if you go to macna.org and you scroll down to the bottom, let's see if I have it open at the moment. I do. You scroll down to the very bottom on the footer, there's a recordings section in the footer, and there we have websites, web pages you can visit to look at all the talks on one page for each MACNA. So whether it's talking about accomplishments in breeding or people talking about chemistry or lighting. Everything was there.
Very, very cool. I actually saw it came up in my feed. You guys probably can't even see that, but it came up in my feed showing Kathy, whom I love. She is not only the like best person in the world, but she's so smart and knows so much about breed. It's just amazing. She's apparently spoke about raising marine ornamental fish. Oh gosh, I just want to cry. But that I personally appreciate that, Kevin, and I'm sure many other people do. And thank you to PRS for posting those videos for those who allow you to tape them, because that's valuable stuff. So thank you very much. Anything
Before
else?
the
Go ahead.
2019, I was gonna say before the 2019 talks went live, I went through all the old recordings and I added up all the view counts, and it was something like 800,000 plus views on
Wow.
all the previous MACNA talks. So I'm so happy we can bring not everyone to MACNA, but bring those talks to everyone around the world.
Yes, I one of the well, I think it was 2016. I'm probably wrong, but I think it was. No, it had to be before that. Anyways, I just have a personal favorite where this Laura got up and was just like, "Bam, we need to do sustainability," and it was like years before it was like huge and very, very cool. Loved it. Anyways, so yeah, guys, that's always available and definitely great information. So it sounds like most people are taking advantage of it, but anybody who hears this, definitely look. And Dan, what's going on with you? Anything new with you? I didn't really give you a chance to say hello. I'm sorry.
No, same old stuff. Saw the eye doctor this week and got a good report. And we came across some kind of unique stuff in that I had some irritation that we found out was blue light orientated. Um, so we've come up with a fix with that. And the eye looks really good. The left eye that they were concerned about has turned out to be, you know, last year in August when I had the eye exam, they said I was having a cataract, starting a cataract,
Mm-hmm.
and by October, November, I was blind in that eye. And this time in August, they said I have a starting of a cataract in the left eye, but it's essentially unchanged as of now. So,
Wow.
um, since I'm wearing a clear lens on one side and a prescription lens on the other side, and everything is I'm able to compensate for it with glasses. They're not concerned that I should go ahead and do that. So that's
Good.
all good. I'm still working the feed and um, still doing some seahorses and on a part-time basis. And I have shipped a few of the dwarf erectus out, and I'm just kind of, you know, putzing along, if you will.
Well, I already mentioned at the beginning before you joined that anyone who has purchased those dwarf erectus, I want to know what they think, because I'm planning a purchase soon. I had so many seahorses, now I'm down to where I want more. So bottom line is, I want to know what you guys think of the dwarf erectus. Is smaller better? Is it come in a small package? All right, and also, if there was anything else, please feel free to interrupt me. But I know Salty, if this is a good moment, I know you had exciting news, and so I wanted to make sure you got a chance to share your exciting news. I don't see the mute coming up. So whenever you are ready to share your exciting news, I want to hear it. It's exciting for me too. So Salty, Salty. All right. Well, when he's ready to come, oh, here we go. Is this a good
Hello.
time?
Yeah,
Okay, so what's up?
I'm finally ready for seahorses again.
Woo! Yeah. All right. So I think if I remember correctly, we went from 75 gallon changed, or maybe it was 175. I'm lost. Tell me where we're at, where we've been, and
Uh,
where we're going.
it, it was supposed to be the 125, but it didn't fit where I needed it to go.
Right.
So we're at the 75.
Okay. And so you're all the babies are doing well and chitlins are doing well. So we're going seahorse, huh? What have you decided on?
Yep. Just erectus.
Awesome. Very, very cool. And have you started yet, or will you be starting like? Like, in other words, when
Uh,
can we bug you for an update?
Probably next week.
Yay!
Like the tank's up. It's cycled. I had a bunch of fish in it just to see how it handled the bio load, and so far it's doing really good. So
Nice. I've always been curious about that, using other fish to, determine the bioload. I've never done it because I was always afraid, but please let me know how it works out. Let me know how it goes, and hopefully you did some videos that we'll either see on your channel or you'll share here, whatever. But hopefully we'll see, how this goes through the process, right?
yeah, I have a couple videos that I'm working on.
Yay! All right. Well, whenever you want to share them, share the link. Let us know. And I'm so excited. And hopefully, as you get going, if you do have any questions, or if you do something and you realize, oh, geez, that might be something that would really help somebody else, come tell us in here. So that anybody watching will, be able to ask you questions or follow along. Very, very cool. And I'm so excited. Everything else okay? Babies and all, everything?
Yeah, yeah, everything's going pretty good.
Okay.
Um, we decided that since I didn't have room in the house to do our fish room, that we're gonna move it to the garage to
Sometimes that's the
make a
best.
bigger room.
Sometimes that's the best decision. How are you going to keep it like temperature controlled though?
It's heated and air conditioned.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Well, we can't wait for a walkthrough. Definitely. Very cool.
Yeah, that's gonna be a couple months down the road.
Sure. Sure, I understand. Did anybody who is just jumping into the channel, we've been waiting on this family to get into the seahorses for too long. They started, kind of backed up. A baby was born, all this craziness. So we're just really excited to see the seahorses hit the salty reef. What's the new name? Actually, I keep calling you salty reef. I'm sorry. Did you
I
go?
changed it back.
Okay, cool. Because you'll always be salty reef to me. All right.
Yeah,
Anyhow, very cool. Well, we're excited and definitely can't wait to see as we go along. Um, all right, guys. So, did you have anything else you wanted to share? Sorry.
yeah. Has anyone here had experience with the Gulf Coast ecosystem when ordering macroalgae?
Well, I have. Anybody else had experience with them? Nope. Okay. What's your question? I'll do my best.
I just didn't know how they were. I've never ordered with them, and I didn't know how the experience was.
Okay, so Gulf Coast Ecosystem is one of the brands or companies that I typically recommend to people with a few caveats. Basically, they're extremely good. Their quantities are better than like you're gonna get almost anywhere else. I don't think I've seen better quantities. You order something and it's a bag, like no joke, like this, and full, packed with something. Where on eBay you'll get something like this, right? So they're really good about quantities. The owner, Russ, is absolutely amazing. He's really great. The only thing you have to keep in your head is that these macroalgae are collected and stored, but not like crazy quarantined and then shipped. So they need to be considered like recently collected, and so that means it's upon you to quarantine them. The only problems I have ever had from ordering macros from this company is aptasia. And that's an easy fix, guys. All you have to do is stick the macro into tank water or salt water or whatever. I would personally say tank water, and you do have to feed the tank, because the quarantine tank, sorry. Put light over it, give it light, give it water, and give it food. And the reason I say food is because the aptasia won't come out until there's, something enticing it to come out. But if you do that and then you clip off anything that has aptasia on it, you're golden. So I like them. I still use them to this day. So because the quantity is so ridiculous, you could cut off so many parts that might have had any kind of nuisance algae or aptasia or whatever. You can cut it off and get, or even, and that, I know a lot of people who will actually grow the macro for a while in a quarantine tank. Um, and then just use new growth in their actual display tank. That works too. And so, I think they're great. I would order from them again. I still do. There are safer alternatives if you're looking for something immediate. Algae Barn has clean macros. If anybody else thinks of any places that have clean macros that I'm not mentioning, feel free. But there are many places that have clean, but I like them. So I know I went on and on. Did I answer your question though? Good enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of what I was looking for.
All right. Yeah. So it's risk reward. You know, the reward's huge. Risk is a little huger than most places, kind of thing. But I like them. All right. So anything else that I didn't touch upon or that was part of the conversation, Ray? I kind of left you hanging in the dust. I'm sorry.
No, it's interesting to hear other people's stories, and
Yeah.
when it's like when Kevin was talking there, like I know nothing about his background, but he's obviously a lot more knowledgeable than I am. So when you get people on like that, it can be quite interesting.
Well, I won't give I won't announce people who don't want to be announced if they don't want to be announced, but he's the director of MACNA and MASNA. So very cool guy, doctor who has that scientific background and is very involved in every aspect of basically everything. So, you know, we always love when Kevin joins. Thank you, Kevin. um, but yeah, no, I agree, and we love hearing the scientific expert opinion also very often, and we thank Dan too also, and even you, Ray. I just think sharing of opinions is really important, especially when you consider other people's opinions. Very cool. Um, but yeah, so
There,
go ahead.
there's 2 questions in the chat.
Thank you, Salty. See, I'm rambling and not looking. Do you want to say the question, or you want me to?
Um, Izzy was asking what a UV sterilizer is and what it does.
Okay. Anybody else want to
And
handle it? Go ahead.
the other question was how to quarantine macroalgae.
Oh boy. Okay, I'll try to not ramble, guys. If anybody has any ideas, please pipe in. All right, let's do the quarantine first. Quarantine macroalgae. There are many different ways you can. I'm not gonna act like my way is best. I'm very simple. I put a tank big enough to have some flow. I add like a power head or something. I put I make my own salt water or use tank water for the reason that there's already nutrients in the tank, and that whole feeding thing can be less, because that's what brings the aptasia out, is that they want food. I'm sure Kevin or someone could give a better scientific description of that, but I just know that if you don't feed the tank, then the aptasia won't typically pop out until you put it in a tank with nutrients in the water. All right, anyways, tank, power head, or wave maker, something, bubbler, something to do the oxygen and the flow, kind of tumble it a bit. Light, you have to give the macroalgae light, but luckily with macroalgae, you're typically okay with like floodlights, cheap, from Walgreens or Home Depot, wherever, kind of floodlights. Depends on the size of the tank because you don't want to burn them. But if you message me on the side, I can always help you out with that, equaling out the light and such. But they just need, some people even use just room light for macroalgae. And if it does lose color or isn't doing fantastically, you do have to make it grow, obviously, but you can always color it back up in the display. So, tank, flow, light, and then feed. And literally, when I say feed, you're not feeding fish, but like when I'm quarantining macro, I'll just throw in food, just check on it once in a while, make sure it's doing all right growing. You can use, miracle mud and such to make it grow faster. And like I said, that's just keeping it out of the display until you make sure it's clear of aptasia and things like that. But that's all I do. I just set up a mock tank that's really simple and give it light and food. That's it. Did someone have something to say? No, maybe. Okay. Anyways, and then what was the other question? Salty, I forgot already.
UV.
UV. All right. Anyone else want to describe UV sterilization? Because to be honest, to answer that question, it's a machine that you hook up that makes the water clear. So, anybody got anything better than that? Kevin?
Sure. So just like we can develop this is quite literally true. We can develop cancer by decades and decades of being exposed to the sun. It's the UV light in sunlight that is it's changing our DNA on a cellular level, and then is promoting the abnormal growth of cells. And so, with very small microscopic organisms, um, through a very small tube at a very slow flow rate with a large amount and a large intensity of UV light. And basically, the time it takes for that microorganism to pass through that chamber, you are blasting it with so much radiation, and it's such a small size that you're altering its DNA and its genetic code. It may not kill it instantly, but you're basically killing it within its natural life cycle or preventing it from reproducing. And so the goal being that you're killing basically everything that goes through it that's small enough. Now, you'll see different size UV lights with different flow rates. And basically, you can adjust the wattage or the flow or the thickness of that tube inside to control how much light and how much radiation is exposed to the organisms that are flowing through it. And you'll see tables of different scientific names of things with bacteria and virus and protists and parasites, and basically the exposure rate in the unit is the amount of radiation per area per time. And that's just a calculation. It's usually a number in the tens or hundreds of thousands of those units. So basically, you adjust your flow rate and size accordingly, depending upon what you want to kill or what you want to target. Bigger organisms that are more complex require more wattage, and so they might require a larger unit because you can't slow down the water that much. Or you might have multiple lights in parallel because you just have so much water flowing through it. But ultimately, the goal is to disrupt its life cycle somehow. And we can't really mechanically sit there and bash the bacteria, or we can't mechanically damage them. So we can do that through the use of radiation through the UV light. Now, this is why, too, sometimes if you're at a doctor's office or like a lab, they'll have a chamber or a little box on the wall for glasses, like safety glasses. And I worked in some facilities where these safety glasses, you take them off, you put them into a box, and as you close that box, you see a light appear, and that's actually a UV light that's unprotected, but only turned on when that box is closed to sterilize those safety glasses. But
cool.
you as a human, without any sort of protective eye care, shouldn't be looking directly at a UV light. And even the cheapest of $5 sunglasses are at least UVB rated to like a certain percentage, and some are polarized, and there's different filters there. But please never look at a UV light. I don't have one here. I have one downstairs, but they'll have like little tiny clear windows that will not allow you to look directly at the light, but you'll see the glow of the light, just so that from a point of view of if I plug it in, does it turn on? And also, it's not electrocuting everything in my tank. Can I verify that it is working? And like with T5s or any type of bulb of that nature, the effectiveness of that bulb can decrease, and also there's a sleeve around that bulb that you want to occasionally check, maybe on a month or every quarter, to see whether it's clean. Just before that or after that, within that same unit, you might have things growing that aren't directly exposed to the UV light. So mechanically, you want to make sure that everything is flowing through it. Where you might plummet is something before a protein skimmer, because a protein skimmer is never really going to change too much in the amount of water that's flowing through it. It might depend upon whether it's an in-tank or an in-sump protein skimmer. Your water level might change the flow rate of the protein skimmer. But I would never plumb a UV light before mechanical filter, because as the mechanical filter becomes more dirty, that flow rate is going to change a lot, and therefore the effectiveness of your UV light will change as well. If you're going to keep it horizontal, you can plumb the water in kind of basically slightly off level, so it comes in the bottom and goes out the top. And if you were to plumb it vertically, you want to plumb the water in the bottom and out the top. The goal is to never have air bubbles trapped within that chamber. I've seen some unknowledgeable people plumb in the top and out the bottom. Basically, the water is just free falling with the assistance of gravity, and there's heaps of air in there, and you're losing a lot of the effectiveness. So you don't want any air trapped in there as well. Micro bubbles aside, like you want to make sure that your water, it can be on a closed loop within the sump, but there are all sorts of calculations. You can get a water bottle such as I've been drinking out of here, and you can, basically time how much it takes to fill this volume, whether it's in fluid ounces or milliliters, and then you can extrapolate the flow rate through the UV, and you can whether you can change the speed of your pump or the height of your filter, or you can tee off, or before it gets to there, you can change the flow rate through that filter to make it more or less effective. But yeah, if you have just a standard 80 gallon or 150 gallon, most UVs that are commercially available for the hobbyist world are something along this size. I have some for some research tanks that were like 4 feet long, but I was trying to kill protists even, which is a bit crazy. But yeah, most things are, around this size, and you can
Mhm.
plumb them into your sump. Some companies that provide the all-in-one solutions have it. I've made some comments in the past 6 months to 12 months about I'd like to see more UV in those all-in-one systems. However, the UV light is very effective at destroying plastic, and so typically the plastics that are within such a filter are very expensive. And so from a production point of view, from a manufacturing point of view, the cost of implementing UV into those systems is very high. And so you always want to potentially add that on to your system later on. I think that, I can't see the chat, unfortunately, so I'm not sure if this person has any other
And I wasn't even looking, but I have
comments.
a.
I would add,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I would add that Live Aquaria and Wet Web Media have really good kind of what is UV kind of articles that are written to kind of a more intro and basic level. Additionally, a lot of forums will have calculators basically that will say this, you put in your flow rate of your pump and whether you can tee it off and your volume and all sorts of things, and you can kind of get an idea for what wattage UV fixture you might need, and then you can go look up the prices.
Very, very good. And I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. No, and I was going to mention Wet Web Media too, also because they're excellent and they really helped me kind of get a grasp. And you just reminded me. Thank you. And it actually even extends to like algae. A lot of people use them for just algae maintenance. That's not the. I agree that the more important things are actually controlling all of it. But anyhow, I had a question for you just while you were talking because I'm one of those newbies who plumbs incorrectly. So you said to plumb it which way? Because honestly, I'm afraid mine's wrong. Mine's even. Jeez.
Ultimately, you always want the water in to be slightly lower than the water out. So if it's horizontal, you just want to make it a little bit off so that
Okay.
the air has somewhere to escape to. If you're going to plumb it horizontal, have your water in and water out be pointing up.
Okay, they
And
are. Okay.
your water in to be pointed down, because you want the air to be able to escape. You don't want it to be like the top of a loop where the water in and water out are both facing down, because then potentially air is getting stuck in there. The worst case scenario is that the UV light itself will produce so much heat that's not removed by the water that it's just sitting in that air pocket, and
Mm,
it can crack not only the ball, but it can crack the sleeve that's protecting it around it. Then you end up with not only quartz glass in your tank, but then you have potentially 120 or 240 volts of live electricity that may or may not be on a GFI running through your tank. So
right.
you don't want to electrocute yourself, your fish, your animals. You want to protect your equipment. So just a little tiny change in the way you plumb it or how you plumb it.
Well, to be honest, mine's crooked, and I think it's the right way, so I think we're good. And you also said, you also said that doing a loop, meaning back, like I have mine set up. Sorry to whoever was asking questions. Now I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this. All right, so you said that as long as I have it set up after the skimmer and etc., where it feeds into the UV and then loops back into the sump, that helps me with any kind of bubble issues also, or no?
Well, you want before the skimmer, because you don't want. It's really hard to plumb anything out of a skimmer.
Okay.
But ultimately, you don't want a lot of bubbles running through it, because the bubbles are doing a couple of things. They're blocking the actual light from hitting the water. Um, so oftentimes the tube is down the middle and the water is going on the outside. But if you have bubbles in there, you're just basically destroying its effectiveness by
Sure.
those bubbles are just reflecting back that water, air, or water gas membrane, or that interaction is just reflecting the light back. So you want as bubble-free water as possible going through it. And yeah, you want it to be you want the flow rate to be known, and you don't want it to change a lot. So
Sure.
you can put it on a return, because oftentimes now we have so many recirculating power heads within our tank that our return pumps aren't that strong. However, the amount of water running through a return might be higher than what you want to, or you might have to buy a more expensive UV filter because you're pushing so much water through your return. If you just have a little tiny pump that might be $10, $15, you might be able to effectively just make a closed loop within your sump. It might
Oh,
actually mechanically go out, but you're just pumping the water back in, and your
okay.
head height then is a matter of inches, not a matter of 3 or 4 feet
Okay.
that you have to overcome.
Now I understand. I'm sorry I misunderstood what you were saying. That makes sense now, and I'm sorry I said it wrong. Um, Okay, yeah, the one I have honestly is not my favorite. I went cheap and got something external and just I don't like it, but it's worked. It's done the job as far as I can tell. But I'm going to take some of the tips I learned here today. So look at that, we all learned. And one last final question: if you're in a situation where you do have and like the external system, it's hooked up on the side. I very likely have it maybe set up minorly wrong at this point, which is terrifying. But the other thing I'm thinking is the in out. I got what you said, but I have my water flow based on a system that can be shut off to feed. And now I'm really concerned. Is that a bad thing if it's sitting there? I'm not sure if I have a system that I don't know. Are they supposed to like shut off if you're in a situation where you're feeding, or is that your responsibility? I honestly think I have mine hooked up to shut off at the same time, but it's been a while. So would that be an important thing? Did that even make
I
sense?
don't know
Okay.
the blanket statement is don't have it on if there's no water flowing through it.
Got it. If it's not flowing, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how I have to have it set up. Okay. Don't have it on if there's water flowing through it. We'll go with that. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm looking at my system. It's been so long since I set it up, and I'm like, oh, gee. So sorry, guys, but great advice. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for explaining it all to us. Do you other guys in here? Do you guys use UV at all? I know Dan does. Ray, do you?
No,
No? Just never had a
never
need?
used it. Never used it. Yeah, until I see a need for it, then I don't intend to use it. Like you
Sure.
can sit there and add all sorts of things to a system, but if you're adding it and it's not doing much for it, or if you don't have a reason for whatever you're adding, why do it?
And
It's like that testing we're getting into. Why do it unless you have a purpose?
And Kevin, I think you kind of covered what you thought the most important thing, why you view it as important. What do you think see most people using it for? Like I know people use it for
Seahorse seahorse keepers, successful seahorse keepers aren't lazy aquarium hobbyists, right?
right.
If anything, having a UV filter on your tank would allow you to get away with uh, more infrequent mechanical detritus removal. Basically, you're preventing the amount of bacteria from exploding in your tank. However, everyone who might be watching this, I would hope, and successful aquarium keepers in general, if you're feeding, you don't want that food to sit there and rot away in the bottom of your tank. And as Dan mentioned earlier, seahorses are notoriously messy feeders, right? And so I personally don't like to keep seahorses with any light on them or any
Right.
macroalgae in the same tank, because the amount of light that you have to shine on the tank
Sure.
will just promote nuisance algae growth or algae growth. Sorry. And so, yeah, ultimately, the UV allows people to keep their bacterial load uh, under check more readily than you would have otherwise. So if you don't have any problems with your current maintenance procedures and your current husbandry techniques now, the need for a UV filter may not be there. So.
Sure. And I'll admit, anyone watching, I'm quite lazy, even though I'm a seahorse keeper. I try, but I'm quite lazy. Dan, if you're still there, I really quickly wanted to hear your thoughts, whether because I know we've talked a lot about different machines and different methods and different everything, and there are just some that in my personal opinion and in my personal experience have ended up being beneficial, say like probiotics and things like that. And in my opinion, UV sterilization, where I've used it before it was necessary, but believe it made a difference. Do you think UV falls in that category or not? Is Dan gone? Did I lose Dan? Now I'm calling on him and he's gone. So cool. There he is.
Sorry,
Okay.
here I am.
It's okay.
Here,
It's all right.
I'm sorry. I stepped out on a phone call for a few minutes, so I'm catching up.
I shouldn't call people out when they're muted. I'm sorry. What?
That's all right. So the question is UV beneficial? Is that your question?
My question is, the conversation has been basically that seahorse keepers are not typically lazy. So if they're on top of their tank and they're doing a good job, folks like Ray who are on top of it, constantly making sure there's no food setting, constantly, have a system that's kept up, organic slow, da da da, and they don't have a problem, UV sterilization is not necessary, which I agree with 100%. But for someone watching that's new, that's setting up, or might be experiencing a little bit of problem or whatever, I personally have found that things that you can't necessarily see the difference, like you can't see A and B, or you might do it before you have a problem, I just personally think they have beneficially or been a benefit to my systems. So like probiotics was an example, and now we're just comparing and asking if UV sterilization falls into that category in your thoughts or no.
Well, it's interesting because when I first started breeding, I played with UVs and I played without them in terms of breeding. And in the beginning years, I found no benefit running a UV system. However, after talking with a water engineer and looking at my systems today, I think UV is very beneficial
Hmm.
because, well, I have to prefix this with, a lot of people run UVs that are underpowered or
Right.
they're putting too much water through for the rated amount of light coming through. They're not pre-filtering them. If you take a UV system and you've got, particles passing through that are 20 and 30 microns in size, that acts like an umbrella for bacteria that are passing through. So you need to pre-filter. You need to have good pre-filtration before the UV for it to be effective in terms of killing the unwanted organisms. But UV also, it's more complicated than that, and I can't put it into simple terms, but UV can have an impact on the ORP. There's some other things it does to the water besides just killing organisms. So I
Hmm.
do think that UV is beneficial. And if I was to completely rebuild my systems as they stand today, they would all have UV.
Hmm.
And if I was to build a huge system, it would have a massive UV prior to the water passing through.
Very interesting. I don't think I've ever heard you say that. So that's cool. Not to say you're wrong. Anybody watching, if you don't have UV or don't want to have UV, that's fine. But it's just interesting to me because I've always felt like it made a difference. Um, so there you
Well,
go.
another thing that UV does that most people don't understand or realize is that, and it gets very complicated when you break it down. But
Kevin,
UV
Kevin
can
did.
also
Sorry to interrupt. Kevin did a really good job. You were probably on your phone call, but go on. I'm sorry.
okay, but UV can also help break down some of the organic matter and make it easier to remove.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, and what I'm gathering, just make sure I say it correctly because I said it incorrectly before, is basically based on what Kevin and Dan have both said. If you're interested in UV, the important part is making sure that we have the correct flow through rate, meaning look on wet wild, shit. Sorry guys, web media, and go look up some of the articles that Kevin recommended to learn the flow through rate that you need. Actually, I've noticed that the vendors have gotten really a lot better about telling you, but still double check, because they might give you a pump that's a little less. Get the right flow through, set it up properly, and Dan pointed out we need pre-filtration. Make sure you're not throwing big chunks at it because that would get caught up and etc. Then make sure it's not after the skimmer. I'm going to say it correctly because of the bubbles. And yeah, so that's if you want to do it. To keep those things in mind. Were you going to say something else, Dan? Or we good?
No, I wasn't. But what I will say is that not all UVs are equal,
True.
and some of the
Right.
cheap UVs are using cheap bulbs, and the wavelengths are not the same as some of the others. So
Yeah.
it pays to do some research onto what you're buying in terms of UV.
Yes, and Kevin also mentioned make sure to change it when you're supposed to change it because that can cause all sorts of chaos too. Um, very good. Okay. Anything else that we haven't answered that I've missed that anybody wants to share, wants to chat about? I do have to be at the store within 20 minutes, guys, so I might have to call this one short. But this has been a fabulous conversation. I really appreciate everybody coming tonight. Very cool.
A real a real quick update on Curtis.
Please,
Um,
please.
the history of what he's given me. This has come on within the last 24 hours. If the picture that he sent me shows a white area, it shows a circle with a white area on the outside edges, but the center is dark. And it's not raised at all. And when I look at it, my first thought is that it looks like some type of a sting of some sort.
Mm.
Um, if it was bacterial or if it was protozoan from something, say, urinema like type stuff, I would expect to see a center point with everything spreading outward. In this case, everything is on the outside edges, more like coming inward. So to me, it looks more like a sting. The tank that he has set up was following my recommendations, and there's no corals in the tank. There's nothing in there that, except for the possibility of a sea cucumber, that could have possibly done anything to the seahorse. So at this point, I have no clue as to what's going on with
Mm.
the area. The area looks like it's about a half inch to an inch in diameter, just from the picture. Um, and the only thing I can recommend at this point is a wait and see approach to see what develops, because you know I don't recommend throwing antibiotics in there because I don't see where, without an back, some type of indication it's bacterial, infection, to treat it that way. And I don't want to stress the seahorse out with a bunch of anti-parasitic meds. We really don't know what's going on, so we're taking a wait and see approach to see what happens.
Well, very good. I mean, that's, sorry guys, I had to close myself off for a second. But yeah, no, very good. That's sometimes like the best thing, guys. I know I'm the worst at seeing something and jumping and freaking out and being like, I want to throw everything at it. But we've had several times in just this Wine Wednesday where people have commented and mentioned how throwing these antibiotics or whatever at things sometimes is not the best plan. So, very, very good, Dan. Thank you for updating us. And Curtis, we just know we're all with you, and we really, really hope that things work out. And please let us know. Another thought, guys, is Curtis, if you happen to be on Seahorse Sources group, obviously Dan's helping you listen to Dan's advice, but if something else happens and you can't reach him right away, post there because we're all there, and we'll certainly try to help if we can. But beware, make sure to listen to Dan's advice above all, because you're getting anything online. Okay. Anyhow, hi Jeremy. Sorry that I missed that part. I'm just looking to see if there's any other questions, comments. If any of my guests have anything to share. I'm just, yes, pushing you guys out the door. I'm sorry. Uh, but hey, Edson, sorry we didn't get a chance to jump you in today. Hope you're well. And thank you so much for your ozone explanation. We've had some really good Wine Wednesdays lately, talking about some really cool stuff. I know I'm learning. All right. Well, I don't see anything else that I missed. But Jeremy,
I
sorry you
need to
came
go
in at
get
the end.
something to eat anyway.
I'm sorry, Ray.
I need to go get something to eat anyway.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
coming up on morning, so I got to get something else.
Well, go fill it. I know that was terrible. Sorry. Thank you for coming, Ray, Kevin, Salty, Dan. Thank you. Hope to see you guys all again next time. If you guys want to say goodbye really quickly, because I always cut you off, or if you have
Hey,
anything
all.
else to say, bye, Ray. Anybody else want to say bye? Because once I cut it, I cut it.
Stay fishy.
Oh, we got a quack quack.
See ya.
All right. Cheers, everyone. Happy Wine Wednesday. See you next week. Thank you again so much to the guests. Cheers.